Hiya everyone, I'm Jamie and this is a Dead by Daylight discussion video into my views on how they should rework Hex Perks. Now I've always had a bit of a problem with Hex Perks. Like if you've watched some of my videos playing Killer, I very rarely use a Hex Perk, if ever. And that's because I don't really agree with the idea behind Hex Perks. Behaviour have said that they want Hex Perks to be high risk, high reward. So the risk being that if you bring them in, they could get broken and then you don't have that perk anymore. The reward being that Hex Perks, in their view, are really strong. The problem is, I don't think Hex Perks, as a rule, are strong. Like the Third Seal, Huntress Lullaby, and even Ruin aren't even that strong. So you run the risk of them getting broken by bringing them in, but they don't actually give you that much of a benefit. But even strong Hex Perks like Devour Hope, a survivor can cleanse Devour Hope in 14 seconds. That's how long it takes to do the animation and the bar to go up to cleanse a Hex Totem. Whereas it takes the Killer anywhere between a minimum of like 3 to 5 minutes or something like that to get the full benefit of the perk. So before you've even got an inkling of a benefit to having the perk, it's been broken. And then there's No One Escapes Death that gives a very strong benefit for very little input from the Killer. A Killer can stand in the middle of the field for the entire game, wait until all the gens are done, and then down everyone in 4 seconds and win the game, essentially. So yeah, based on these feelings that I have towards Hex Perks, I've reworked 6 of them, as you can see on the screen there. The 4 in the top right hand corner I have decided not to rework because I think they were in a good place. Mostly because they're either Hex Totems that protect other Hex Totems, or they're trap totems like Haunted Ground, which I think those 4 are in a good place. I wouldn't do anything to those. The first one I thought might need a bit of a rework is Blood Favor. Now, I've said possibly for Blood Favor because it's not even out yet. It comes out in the next update, the next patch. But I think, based on the PTB and based on reading the info to this perk, I don't think it needs a cooldown. That's the only thing I'd do to Blood Favor. It would remain a Hex Perk. Just to clarify, the ones on the left would remain Hex Perks, the ones on the right would not. But yeah, Blood Favor, I think I just remove the cooldown, because why does a Hex Perk also need a cooldown? It already has a downside in that it's a Hex Perk. I don't think it needs a cooldown as well. Because if you think about it, Hex Blood Favor, if you hit somebody with a basic attack, it blocks all pallets in 16 meters from the event. So a good survivor would run around a pallet a load of times, loop the pallet, and then when they get hit, they'll use the speed boost to get to another area. That's how a good survivor would run a pallet. A medium survivor would run the pallet until you get close, then they drop it and move on to the next one. And then a bad survivor would just wait at the pallet and try and drop it on your head. So either way, that's not going to get much of a benefit. The only benefit I can really see from Blood Favor is to protect you from pallet saves. So you down a survivor, the entity holds up the pallet, and nobody can drop it on your head to stop you picking up that survivor. So I don't think it needs to be a Hex Perk and a cooldown. I'm leaving it as a Hex Perk because I didn't want to make too many Hex Perks not Hex Perks anymore. But yeah, that's my changes to Blood Favor. Devour Hope was an interesting one because I really don't want to do too much to Devour Hope because I think it's a good perk. It's like the best example of what they want a Hex Perk to be. It's high risk, high reward. The only problem I have with it is that it can be broken before it does anything for you. So what I do to change Devour Hope is I'd make it like invisible until you get to 3 tokens with it. So all the totems on the map are dual totems until you get to 3 stacks, and then if you have Devour Hope, one of those dual totems will be lit, and the survivors will then know that Devour Hope is in play. Well, they won't know until you hit them, but it'll be there for them to cleanse. So you still have a chance to get some benefit from it, and the survivors can't cleanse it right at the start of the game, but they still can cleanse it. I'm not making Devour Hope a normal perk. Oh my god, imagine. Next is Noed, No One Escapes Death. The perk that people seem to complain about most. Like, you run this in a game, somebody will go, Noed? Really? Really? I don't really get it, it's not really that good. But I am upset with it in its current form because like I said, you can get it with doing nothing all game. You can stand in one place and then at the end of the game you can down all the survivors, hook them all and get a 4K basically for nothing at all. So I'd change it into a token system. So every time you hook a survivor, you gain a token, and the max is 8 tokens. And as it stands, as NOED exists in its current form, it gives you a 4% speed boost, and everybody becomes exposed at the end of the game. What I'd have is when you receive 4 tokens, so if you hook 4 survivors, or hook survivors 4 times, whatever, you will gain the 4% speed boost. At 8 tokens, every survivor becomes exposed. So that's how it would work. You'd have to work for the NOED rewards. I've put the exposed status effect at 8 tokens so that you have to work for it a bit more, and that seems to be what most people complain about. And also, if you get 8 hooks in a match, I've played well, and you've earned the reward, basically. And also, if you say, like, everyone's been in this situation where you've hooked everyone twice, everyone's on death hook, and just because you haven't killed anyone, they are still at 4 survivors and they get all the gens done and they all get out. I feel like NOED wouldn't win you the game at this point. You've already played well, you're probably going to double pip. You're probably going to single pip if you hook everyone twice and they all get out. It's probably going to be fine. But NOED at this point would just help you to secure a kill or 2 at the end. It wouldn't make it so, you can do nothing and then just kill all the survivors. It would just be a little bit of a bonus at the end to just help you if you've already done fairly well. I think that would be a good change to NOED, personally. Okay, moving on to the perks that I would make no longer Hex Perks. Let's start with the third seal. So as it stands, the third seal, when you hit a survivor with a basic attack, they are afflicted with blindness until the totem gets removed. Now, I think this is pointless. This is utterly garbage. I don't think there's any point in third seal at all. You can run knockout, and that does basically the same thing without being a hex totem. So I would make third seal not a hex totem. And I would change it slightly in that the effect of blindness would be inflicted after you hook a survivor rather than hitting them with a basic attack, just to make it a little bit harder to achieve the effect it already gives you. The second perk that I would make a normal perk instead of a hex perk is Huntress Lullaby. Now, Huntress Lullaby can be really quite strong at low ranks with survivors who don't know how to hit skill checks, or just aren't ready for that. I haven't practiced enough hitting skill checks and stuff like that. Other than that, even if you get into like the yellow ranks, Huntress Lullaby becomes virtually useless, because say I'm pretty garbage at hitting skill checks. I've got like 230 hours in this game, and I'm pretty garbage at hitting skill checks. Often I can't do it. I can't hit great skill checks most of the time. Sometimes I fail normal skill checks. But even like if I pay attention when Huntress Lullaby is active and it's got 5 stacks and you're getting no warning for skill checks, if I focus, I can hit those skill checks, and I'm garbage at hitting skill checks. So I don't think that's worthy of a hex totem, especially one that's lit from the beginning of the game, because before you've even got the slight benefit that Huntress Lullaby gives you, it's probably going to get cleansed. So I would make it a non-hex perk, and to balance it out a little bit, I would just remove the extra regression from missed skill checks. So it would be more of an information perk. So once you get to 5 stacks, no more warnings for skill checks, no extra regression, you just see that boom from somebody failing a skill check, and you go off and hit them. And finally, the perk that inspired this video, Ruin. Now, I don't think that new Ruin should be a hex perk at all. Old Ruin, definitely, because it slowed down the game at the start, because it made normal skill checks regress the generator, and it made great skill checks just make you carry on as normal. But now, all it does is, when survivors aren't working on generators, it regresses them 200%. That 200% regression speed. Now, this is good, but this is not that good at the start of the game. This is good at the end of the game. By that time, it's definitely going to be cleansed. It's not going to be in the game anymore. People will have found it by then. Unless it's in like a ridiculously good spot, like one of those upturned boxes in Larry's. The survivors are going to find it, they're going to cleanse it. You're not going to have this at the end game. As much as the devs want to say this is an end game perk, it ain't. It's not an end game perk. And while I did think about giving this the same thing I gave Devour Hope, where it only becomes a lit totem later on in the game, I decided against it because having that effect like only appear late on in the game might be a little bit too strong, and to be honest, I'd rather just make it a normal perk. I would reduce the gen regression to 100% speed if the survivor's not working on it. Basically, this would save time having to kick gens. So a gen's got a lot of progress on it, you chase the survivor off it, and you can carry on chasing them. You don't have to worry about, you know, kicking that gen and following them. It will carry on, it will just regress as long as no other survivors are in the area to keep working on it. And yeah, it just seems like it shouldn't be a hex perk. It's not strong enough anymore to be a hex perk. But yeah, those are my proposed changes to hex perks in general. I've tried to keep it simple, only like a couple, like a few changes for each of them. Don't want to be writing like an essay for all of them. And I've not done any tiered, you know, tier 1, 2, and 3 for the perks because I don't think they should exist anymore. There are too many perks in the game, and it doesn't really make any difference to most of the perks anyway. There's no point in having these tier 1, 2, 3 anymore. Too many perks. The blood webs take too long to complete anyway, so let's just do away with that. That's why I haven't put them in this video. But yeah, if you agree, disagree, just want to discuss something that I've said in this video, leave it in the comments and we'll have a conversation about this, because I don't think, like, there's not a lot of talk about hex perks in general, and I don't know why, because I personally hate them. But anyway, leave in the comments what you think about hex perks and what you think about my suggestions for the hex perks. Yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. I appreciate you so much for watching it, and I hope to see you all back here for the next one. Stay strange, everybody.